tonight we will hear from Nancy Lublin and Maxwell. What's the last name? Watson. Okay, from DoSomething.org. They have so much to talk about, these two, and I'm going to let them do most of the talking. This is the presentation. So be interactive, ask questions. A little bit, one thing I'll say about Nancy is I have respected, I've been a fan of Nancy's for a very long time. Yeah, and she started Dress for Success. Are you guys familiar? Some of you with Dress for Success? Which just, I don't know, it was like one of those ideas that struck me as a young woman, younger woman, when it happened, as being so simple and so smart and just such impact, through such a simple idea. And so, and then DoSomething.org, which they'll tell you about. And I'm just excited to hear about everything they're working on. And I think they're going to talk a little bit about data. And Maxwell has a design, is a designer too. So I'd love for you to talk to those students too about your particular role. Thank you guys. Welcome.
Hey, that was so easy. Hi. So I think we're going to do this in a few parts. So I'm going to talk a little bit about like the history of Do Something, and sort of to where we are at this point, and a little bit of like theory of change bullshit. And then Maxwell's, it's such horseshit, the theory of change. You all study theory of change? It's total horseshit. And then Maxwell, see, we don't need a PowerPoint to be funny. And then no animated GIFs, and yet you will laugh. Exactly. And Maxwell's going to talk about data, he's going to talk about design, and I'll let you talk about like where we're at now in the transition.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things we're doing at this time. There's a lot of change in our organization, so I'm going to go over that with you guys and just open it up. You guys can ask questions and jump in
whatever's interesting to you. Yeah. So I did found Dress for Success, and I was 23 when I founded Dress for Success, and it was awesome, and it grew quickly, and it got to about 76 cities in 4 countries in about 6 years. And then I did what entrepreneurs really do. They get bored. And I am truly an entrepreneur. I had a friend, I spent time with a friend a couple of weeks ago who described himself, he's also an entrepreneur, and said, I'm a wartime CEO, I'm not a peacetime CEO. And when things are kind of in steady state and they just need someone to manage them, that's when I leave and I get bored. And I was like, oh, this speaks to me. I am totally a wartime CEO. When things get steady state, I leave, like I did with Dress for Success. Or with Do Something, a couple of years ago we were like doing really well, we were in steady state, so that's when I started Crisis Text Line, which I understand you were sent the TED Talk. Or we could have been steady state a few months ago, and it was like, nope, we're going to go into total redesign. So I
pull the rug out and everything's up in the air.
I really like fucking things up. So, okay, so I stepped off of flat earth when I left Dress for Success. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from Andrew Shue, from like the original Melrose Place. So I found myself kind of giggling a little bit on the telephone, and I was like, no, so I'm really Andrew Shue. And he was like, we heard that you're trying to figure out what's next. They had asked Wendy Kopp, who founded Teach for America, who should come and run Do Something. So Do Something had been started by Andrew when he was on Melrose Place. He kind of used all of his fame and appearances on Jay Leno to, instead of start like a cologne line, he decided to start Do Something. And the idea was to make community service and social change as fun as sports. And while he was on the cover of Sassy, which doesn't exist anymore, how many of you did go read Sassy? Okay, right. So the cover of Sassy and on Leno and all those things, Do Something was in great shape. But when he called me in 2003, he was living with a wife and 3 kids in Princeton, New Jersey, and Melrose had been off the air for a few years. I mean, the world was a different place, and Sassy was dead, may it rest in peace. So it was just a different place, and the organization had just laid off 21 out of 22 people. They were. Does that include him? No, he wasn't on the staff. He was on the board. And but the board had not formally filed any meeting minutes in 2 years and hadn't filed a Form 990 in 2 years. It was like a knitting circle. And they were $250K in debt, and they were $74,000 in the bank. And they had lost their free office space. Everything had put in boxes in storage in Queens, and no one knew who had the key to the storage facility. So like if you Google fucked company, like Do Something's logo should have been there back in 2003. It was really a mess. It was really bad. But there's this thing about not-for-profits, they're kind of like cockroaches. They never die. They never go away. You can find one funder to kind of prop it up and it'll keep going on, or someone who just really believes it and it'll survive on fumes for a while. And so it was kind of inhaling fumes. And I was like, that's perfect. I'd love to come do it. And I thought the name was really great. And have you ever had a ficus plant? They die all the time. All those leaves always fall, but like if the roots are good, you can always bring it back. And I thought the roots of this are good. It was 2003, there was like the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts and some other youth organizations, but there wasn't really anything fun for young people with social change. It was the year after Friendster, it was the year before Facebook, and I kind of had this hunch that the internet was here to stay, and that maybe it would be a great tool for organizing and reaching young people. And the other thing that was fun about Do Something was the brand was always a little bit edgier and more pop culture, and all the other social change stuff was so earnest. And if you really think about how change has happened, it's actually never started in a classroom like this. It's never started with a business plan. It's always been like drunk 20-somethings taking down the wall in Berlin. Because that's how it happened. It was like 20-somethings who just climbed on the wall one night and started chipping it away, and then news venues were like, oh my gosh, these people are on the wall and they're taking the wall down, the wall's coming down! Or like China starting to open up because, again, a student movement, and that one iconic photo of the student standing in front of a tank. Like, that was not a plan. That was some really crazy Chinese student who's probably in a camp somewhere right now, but you know what I mean. That's how change has always happened. It's not been like good, clear plans and a long-term trajectory. It's been people with chutzpah and guts and just courage and spontaneous, and it's always actually come from anger. It's been people who've been really pissed off. So instead of saying like, oh, what do you care about? What are you passionate about? It's always been like, what really has made people mad and that they've then taken action on. And I thought Do Something might be a place that could capture that and could really run with that. It could be a good angry place. So I thought, there's some life here, I'll take this job. So I came in and I told them I'm not going to raise any money for the first 6 months. Turnaround work is really interesting. There's not a lot of not-for-profit turnaround work out there. Again, they just sort of linger on like cockroaches. They don't really ever come back for a second life. And Do Something had a very strong first life. It was, again, may it rest in peace. It was like in every Blockbuster store. There's really dating it. It was a point of sale at every Blockbuster store and like Taco Bell and a few other things. Do Something had been really huge, again, when Andrew was huge, and then it had gone down. And the idea of like kind of bringing it back was questionable. And so I said, look, for the first 6 months, I'm not going to raise a penny. You people need to get your act together. And I went to some of the board members and said, I think you should resign. And they were like, oh, you have a lot of nerve. You've been here for 3 weeks. So instead, I doubled the size of the board and brought in all kinds of new blood. And a fish stinks from the head down. I started with the board and started with the concept. And when not-for-profits start to go bust, they behave like whores. They'll do anything for money. So when I got to Do Something, I'm funny. Were you not warned? So when I got
by the way, I have to tell you, they're writing an article for us for this class.
Okay,
and
I'm
so,
on tape. That's fine.
yeah, we always talk about the best quote of the night, and I have several.
Okay, we're like 10 minutes in. Look out. Okay, so they behave like whores and they'll do anything for money, which really means a not-for-profit will follow the money when it's running out. So when I got to Do Something, they defined young people as age 5 to 30 plus parents and teachers. Okay? Like because funders had said do this, do this, do this, and in my 3rd week on the job, they said go down to Baltimore. There's a foundation that wants to give us $600,000. Now, when you're $250 in debt and there's $74K in the bank, $600,000 is a really nice payday. So I went down to Baltimore and they said, right, so we want you to open up offices in, and I kid you not, Albuquerque, San Diego, somewhere in Indiana, and something else. And I just said, oh hell no, I'm not signing this. And they said, but like we have the whole contract and agreement, we worked it out with your predecessors, and I was like, 21 of them are gone. And and I said no, and I came back and told the board was like, did we make a mistake in hiring you. I mean, I almost really got fired. They had an emergency phone call and everything, and I said, you've got to trust me. This following the money thing has got to stop, and we've got to find a spine. And so for the first couple of years, it was really just cleanup. I lopped off the little kids. I lopped off the older kids, lost the parents and teachers. We officially call them old people. If you are over the age of 25 to us, we are really not interested in you. You are an old person. And we literally have something on the footer of the website that says old people. And it is purposely there to alienate you and to let young people know that this is a safe space for them. And it was risky, and it was really touch and go for the first few years there. And I think Andrew still doesn't really like me very much, but that's okay. I mean, his legacy is now intact, and the organization is in good shape. But it's not fun being the sheriff to come in and have to change stuff. You know, the pioneers are always the ones with the arrows in their asses. When you're like out there on the forefront, everybody's like aiming for you and shooting at you, and it's really easy to point fingers. So those were some pretty hard years. So fast forward, and what we did was we really honed in and focused on what is our core program, not who's our core funder, you know, not like okay, who's your daddy, let's do what they want. It's who's your target market, like who do you love, who are you serving? Not even what's our best program or service, which is often, people fall in love with their own product all the time, whether it's a tech company or a social good thing. If nobody's buying it, who really cares? So who was our target market? And it was teens. It was really clear that it was teens. And where teens are concerned, it wasn't based on race or demographic or geographic location, because thanks to technology, you're all the same now, and we can have equal access. It was really based on predilection. So we think of young people, and we would never tell them this, so this is like inside baseball right now. We think of young people as presidents, vice presidents, followers, and slackers. We know we are going to get the presidents. Tracy Flick is on our website. Like, we know that the presidents are going to come to do something and like lead things, and that's great. We love Tracy Flick. The slackers, it's actually a very small part of this generation, no matter what Time Magazine's cover says. It's very small, and no one's getting them. They're getting high and playing video games. That's fine. The drugs, whatever. Someone else is getting them, and Minecraft gets them. So what we really want is the bulk of the generation. The bulk of this is vice presidents and followers, people who join stuff. People saying, "Oh, that's a really cool thing. I wanna do that. I wanna participate in that." And so that's who we build for. That's who we design for. And what we do is we run campaigns. So that's who we do it for, and then we thought, like, what do they really want? They want stuff that's easy, they want stuff they can join, they change their mind a lot. You know, when you're 15, 17 years old, you don't have that one thing. You're not totally obsessed with insects yet. You don't have that one thing that's like, oh, this is what lights my fire. You change your mind. You're in love with Bieber 1 week, and 2 weeks later you don't want to have anything to do with him. You know, first you wear all black and dress like a goth, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm going to do Laura Ashley. That's totally dated. I said Laura Ashley. You don't know what that is. Thank you. Me too. All right. Something else. Okay. The point is you're very fickle and you change your mind a lot. And so instead of being one cause, do something is maybe one of the only things out there that's do anything. It's like, just do something. It's not, we don't care if it's like the environment or animals or something else. Just do something, whatever gets your fire. And then a few years ago, we pivoted just from that. We were an open platform. We pivoted to membership and the idea of becoming a member of Do Something, which means we have either your email or your phone number so that we can really push stuff to you regularly. We have a few basic rules. We never require money, an adult, or a car. If you require money, that means you like the rich kids more than the poor kids. Sorry, but you do, and we don't. We like everybody. We don't require an adult because once you require a parent or a teacher or some kind of sign-off or a reference, you're really saying to young people, I don't really think you can do this alone. I think you need help. And we don't think that old people are any better than young people. In fact, your mind is like freer and you're more creative when you're young and you don't know what the traditions are. And the third thing is we don't require a car because that's not how kids roll. They don't really have access to a car. So those are our basic rules. We don't do anything that's specifically political, largely because young people don't give a shit about politics. So that's a nice freeing thing, so we're not aligned with any particular political party, although our office is literally one block over and we're an office of New York liberals, so whatever. So campaigns and how a campaign works, I'm gonna let Maxwell talk about a couple of campaigns. You might want to do the Arrow campaign now.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nancy mentioned an important point that she can really go into. So we do have 2 requirements for membership. One of the requirements is email, the second is cell. We made a pretty big internal shift a few years ago to really focus on SMS, and I think that's one of the more interesting points about Do Something. We focus a lot of our work internally on SMS, and we've gotten a lot of traction with teens through their phones, and it's not a medium that most people are communicating through from an organization perspective these days. It's on paper not that interesting. It's not a new technology. You can't do that much with it, but it's where our audience is. And as Nancy said, we are here for these teenagers, and that's how they communicate. So part of that kind of ongoing research is finding new ways to reach them, and that might be, we have an intern who's just on Snapchat all day long. We hired.
He also happens to be a professional male model with Ford. So the fact that like the venue for selfies is the male model is just awesome. It's really going well. It's really going well. He's doing a great job. He likes to take photos of himself.
2 days a week. We have, and you guys, everyone, this is open.
Go for it. You can
jump on
Snapchat
Snapchat and you can get selfies from male model.
DoSomething.org on Snapchat. Go for it. It's all about social change, but he's just very cute.
So, campaigns. Last year we ran around 20 to 30 campaigns, and as Nancy said, we are in the process of fucking all of it up. So we focused on
Wait, did you say 20 to 30 campaigns?
About 25.
Okay.
Depends on how you.
Okay.
Very fun. So the campaigns at the time were largely staff efforts. We had a team of cause specialists that would design these campaigns. Part of our funding model was going out and getting corporate sponsorship to help fund these campaigns. And a lot of the corporate sponsorship came in along their cause areas. So Aeropostale has partnered with us for the past 7
On a campaign on youth homelessness. I don't know if you've heard me do this one, so you should know we do this. On youth homelessness. So we, 2 causes that young people always care about. If it's like evergreen, always in the top 2. One of them is homelessness. Can you guess what the other cause is young people always care about? When I say young, I mean like 13 to 17. They always care about animals. So it's animals and homeless are like the gateway causes for social change. If you really want to get it, you're not getting my funny drug joke. If you really want to get hooked on social change, basically your starter drug is animals or homeless. So anyway, we knew we wanted to do something on homelessness, so we called all the youth shelters. There wasn't at the time a list of youth shelters, which is criminal, and you can have a whole separate conversation about youth homelessness and runaways and sex trafficking and what a just sad field that is, frankly. The work being done in the space is pretty pathetic. There was no list, so we put a full-time person on it for 3 weeks calling every shelter in America to say, do you take kids? We created a list. It's about 500 shelters in the country that will take kids or families. And said, what do you need? What is the first thing a 17-year-old asks for when he or she gets to a shelter? So what would you ask for if you were homeless? Yeah, if you were 17 and homeless, and you show up at a shelter, what would you ask for? Food?
Clothes. Shower.
Who said clothes? So the answer is jeans. No one ever gets that one. That's good. So it's actually, you would think it'd be clothes, a shower, food, food, a phone. It's actually specifically denim. The first thing that most kids ask for is blue jeans. Why? Because most of you are wearing jeans. You want to be normal. You want to feel like everybody else. The other thing that's also great about jeans is you can change your shirt. Nobody notices the next day. But if I wear these pants tomorrow, he's going to talk. He's going to be like, where did Nancy sleep last night? So, the answer's not that exciting. So jeans, so we said, okay, we can do this. So we created a campaign called Teens for Jeans. We cold called Aeropostale, because most of our funding, like Maxwell said, comes from companies. And we run this campaign called Teens for Jeans. And in about 5 weeks, we collect over 1 million pairs of jeans. I mean, this is big scale campaigns. We clothe about 1/3 of all homeless kids in America because of this campaign every year. And the way that these jeans are used is we collect the jeans. You can drop off your jeans at Aeropostale stores. Because our footprint is just in New York, but this gives us a totally national footprint. And then they go to a youth shelter within 20 miles. And it's pretty terrific, and we do all the logistics. What's really great is the shelters use the jeans to lure kids off the streets. Oh, you want a pair of jeans? You have to sleep in our shelter tonight, which is really great and important for their safety and gets them into programs. So it's pretty terrific. Kids are happy because they've participated and done something good. Moms are happy because kids have cleaned out their closets. Aeropostale is happy because they say that we drive between 300 and 350,000 people into their stores. And we run this campaign in January, February, and nobody's shopping in January, February. So we've given them foot traffic at a time when they need it most. So everybody is happy. That's one type of campaign. And we ran, like Maxwell said, about 25 campaigns this year. One of the interesting things that we've done is our head of campaigns, his name is Dave, has worked on categorizing social change campaigns. So this is a collection, right? So this is a collection type of campaign. There's also like food collection. Do you want to talk about PBS now?
Yeah, so what really makes a lot of these campaigns successful is finding small areas that people don't often think about. So driving foot traffic to Aeropostale January, February is hugely important to them. So that's how we as an organization can provide value to that corporate sponsor. So we're looking at food drives, and food drives are kind of the canonical example of volunteering. But for that reason, while they are still necessary and while they are ubiquitous, they're a little bit boring, and that kind of puts them off brand for us. So we needed a way to make this interesting, to keep it kind of fun and interesting for the teens. But we also needed to stand out. We wanted to kind of own whatever this event was going to be. So we decided to run the largest peanut butter and jelly drive in the United States. And
especially because food pantries need protein, and they need non-perishable protein, and that's peanut butter.
And we, as you imagine, hit a few logistical hurdles. People, it turns out, especially teens, are really allergic to peanut butter. And this goes back to keeping our audience in mind. There aren't many people in our generation, our audience, in our office really, that were allergic, so we didn't think of that initially. But it's something I had to get over. So this is one campaign that'll be coming back this year.
We still collected 250,000 jars of peanut butter in a month. So even for hitting some logistical road bumps, it still did pretty well. Not as well as we had wanted, but that's larger than anybody else has ever collected peanut butter. And we made it even more fun, and again, by leveraging digital, you were either team crunchy or team smooth. Because everybody has an opinion on peanut butter. And so that made it really fun when you did your peanut butter drive with your friends or at your school. It was how much crunchy and how much smooth did you collect. So we have different types. So this is a collection type. We have something else called Share for Good, where we just did a great, you want to talk about Bara's campaign?
Yeah, so we just ran a campaign called Fed Up, which has been circulating around BuzzFeed, Gawker, NPR. And the idea here is just to get teenagers to be able to share the food they're eating on a daily basis. And all of those photo uploads were captioned and sent to a big endless scroll, Tumblr style blog. And then teens could go in and vote whether they would eat the food or toss it. And we ended up still getting crazy amount of votes.
What's it called?
Fed Up.
So who was the sponsor?
Unsponsored.
Sponsored.
We did it because we thought it was the right thing to do. So nobody sponsored it. We like because Fed Up is food. It's also Fed Up. It's also effed up if you really think about it. Yeah.
If you want to see some really gross cafeteria challenges, go to it's Fed Up that do something it's still up.
Is it? But is that what's the cost? I mean, like, what's the
School nutrition. The
Yeah.
idea was school nutrition. So it was take a picture of your school lunch.
Oh.
And so it was pretty awesome, and so it was pretty great to see what they would say toss it to and what they would say eat it to. A whole bunch of stories have now come out from school districts and schools who saw pictures from themselves and did something about it. It's pretty great. The unpredicted thing that came out of this also was the amount of styrofoam. So with all of the pictures, what we didn't realize was every single school lunch is served on that white styrofoam tray, which of course can't be broken down and is awful. So now we're going to run a campaign on styrofoam in 2014, which we hadn't thought of until we saw all these pictures. But there's a great infographic. He's right. If you go to dosomething.org/fedup, you'll see the sort of summary of the campaign. It's had a lot of media attention. School nutrition is a huge problem, and most kids, this is where they're getting their primary source of food is from schools, and when what you're being served, and the captions are hilarious. They made their own captions. They're really, really funny. They're really funny. Yeah, check it out.
How much does a campaign like that cost?
What would you pay for it? What do you think the value for Aeropostale is for that campaign?
I don't know.
For Aeropostale, you didn't have foot traffic in January and February, and we were giving kids a reason to come into your stores. This became a really big part, not only of what your brand stands for, but all of your employees get super excited and feel competitive about which store collects the most jeans. What would it be worth to you to pay for that campaign?
A lot.
More than we're charging them,
Yeah.
right? Because as we said, we've been doing this now with them for 7 years, so we locked them in. But Fed Up, if someone here wants to buy Fed Up for next year, I don't think we'll sell that for less than $350.
350,000.
Yeah. And the answer to the question, you asked the question, what does it cost?
Yeah.
And I answered the question, what's it worth? And this is one of the bees I have in my bonnet for the not-for-profit space, which is we should think of ourselves as what we are worth, not what does it cost. Because when I buy my iPhone, I don't pay for what it actually costs to make it. I pay whatever Apple would ask me for with a straight face and think I would pay.
To that point, it's almost transcending worth and just looking at value.
Yep.
What does that provide to you with value? It doesn't really matter how much the iPhone costs, how much.
I was actually asking because like some of us might be interested in trying to implement things like that for our thesis projects and
Great.
stuff, and like trying to understand what it actually takes to do something at that scale, like the actual operating cost of a campaign like that.
So what's exciting is the cost is coming down because we're building this stuff at scale now, and so what we're working on now is, so I said I would do the history and sort of like how we work. Our theory of change is scale plays and turning young people on to social change while they are young and believing the Whitney Houston song, I believe, you know the song, sing with me. The children are our future, teach them well and let them lead the way. Really? Are you that young you don't know the Whitney Houston song? So, turns out Whitney Houston was wrong about crack, wrong about Bobby, right? That didn't work out so well, and wrong about young people. The whole song is like, teach them well and they'll be good someday. It's horseshit. They're really great now. The whole idea of like, oh, youth development, like invest in young people and it'll pay off in 30 years is somebody with gray hair and like in an office somewhere like was like, this is a great idea. No, it's really that young people are awesome now. And that's our theory. Like that's our theory of change, is that it is worth letting them do these things now and having these campaigns that they take and run with now. And then I said I would talk about where we're at now, and then I'm going to let Maxwell talk a bit about data, and then we'll just open up and I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. So where we're at now is 25 campaigns, right, this past year, largely a lot of SMS work. Are any of you on our SMS list? Are any of you members of Do Something? Okay.
We're all old people.
Are you over 25? Are you all 26 or older? If you are 25 or younger, please text JOIN to 38383 and become part of us. If you are 26 and older, it was really nice to meet you. We're hiring, we're always hiring. So where we're at now is a few months ago, actually back in March, one of our staff, Mike Fantini, proposed that we really pivot and run more campaigns. These campaigns work, and that's really the goal to growth. And so we are we expect to launch 250 campaigns in Q1. So going from 25 campaigns this year completely to launching 250 campaigns in Q1.
Whoa.
And the whole brand promise will shift to any cause, anytime, anywhere. So you walk down the street and you're pissed off, or you see a homeless person and he wants money and you don't want to give him money or you don't have any money, like what could you actually do? So we're not looking for your vote or your click, we're not looking for your money, we want you, we want your action and your creativity and your time and your energy. And so kind of like a change.org or a Kiva or a Donors Choose having a single metric of engagement, we'll have a single metric of engagement. It'll be a campaign. There'll be tons of campaigns for you to choose from. Things you could do with your friends, or things you could do at church, or things you could do just in Atlanta. all of that kind of stuff. So searchable all different kinds of ways, but lots of different campaigns. And then a few months ago, I threw the monkey wrench in, like Maxwell said, and looked at it and said, it all looks like shit. In fact, I nicknamed it Franken-Joan, which is, to me, what would happen if Frankenstein and Joan Rivers had a baby. That's what I think.
Spent 60 years, went through multiple rounds of
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like, so if you look at our Twitter background, and then you look at sort of our mass email, and then you look at like various campaigns, none of it looks like it's a family. It doesn't look like it's part of the same thing. And so I anointed myself creative director, much to the chagrin of Maxwell and others, and was like, everything's gonna have to go through me for a little while. I think we almost lost you a couple times. He was like, I really am hating this, and wanted to go, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him tonight. Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring him tonight, and because it's so much better to talk to him about this in front of people.
When we're giving a talk, this is just group therapy.
Exactly. And but if the proof is in the pudding, like we're in a better place. It's like you can really see that the stuff that we're making, and everybody is all hands on deck. Everybody can weigh in on this. We have creative lunches on Tuesdays, kind of every other Tuesday, where anybody can weigh in and anybody can present like where a various thing is going. And then I summarize it in an email to everybody so that people who didn't make it to the lunch can still see where we're at. And so it's totally transparent. Everybody can weigh in, but yet real decisions are being made, and we're pushing this. And I'm looking forward to not being creative director soon in 2014, and either replacing myself some way, and having systems in place. And I got some great coaching from a friend who's the creative director of Etsy, talking about sort of like Randy Hunt, sort of where I should weigh in and where I shouldn't. And they talk about things in different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And so where I'm really weighing in is on tier 1 type of things. Which means they're very loud, like everyone's going to see them. They're very risky, it's kind of wild. It's expensive, we're spending a lot of money or time on this, or it's sponsored. And so that's where I'm really kind of weighing in. But then once it's approved, it can become tier 2, which means somebody else in the management line can approve it and ship it, or tier 3, which is, well, we've done this before, just keep going. And the idea behind scaling, getting to 250 campaigns, and to long-winded 10 minutes later answer your question about making stuff, is that we're moving into templates. And so with 250 campaigns and 6 different campaign types, so a lot of collection campaigns in that 250, a lot of share for good campaigns in that 250, there's like a chassis, and it just gets reskinned and remade and reshipped time and time again, which makes us better at what we do. Max is going to talk about data now, and allows us to really build for scale. So we're pretty excited about formatting social change this way. We're talking about data.
Yeah.
Oh, I like your penguin tattoo. Oh, that's cool.
So, get into data in a second. I do want to talk about the idea of reusability and how an organization like us is able to scale. As we are a nonprofit, we do have limited resources. Our staff right now is about 40 to 45 full-time. We do everything in-house. We have a full engineering team in-house, we have a data team in-house, we have a designer in-house, and see, this is fun.
He wants more.
Yeah.
What do you want more of?
Design.
Design.
But what allows us to scale is really locking down what these campaign models are. And we started, Nancy was getting at this earlier, we view all the different campaign types we have sort of, perhaps the way Toyota might view its products. You might have an assembly line where the chassis of one car is shared across multiple models, but one of those models might be a minivan, one of those models might be a little sports car. So we try to reuse these components across our business as much as possible, and that really allows us to simplify the entire business. So that allows our biz dev people to know exactly what they're pitching, and then pitch kind of modular components rather than just pitch individual campaigns. There's really interesting work done at NPR, I believe. It's worth looking at. A little bit fuzzy on details, but there's a content strategist named Karen McGrin who did some work with them to completely separate all of their content from their platforms. So if you think about how most websites, most organizations, most anything you interact with that presents you with information, they pretty tightly couple their presentation layers, how you see and how you interact with this data, whether it be through a mobile app on your phone, whether it be through a website, or even through a radio broadcast, and the actual content you're getting. And what they did was decouple all of that. So they had just this completely like content agnostic data store. And they could then feed that into any platform, which ended up future-proofing NPR. So the organization now can move into whatever they want. If they want to send their stories in text, they can. They just need to point that content to a different location. So it's one thing we've been working on, part of the great book that we're currently going through is really everything's up in the air. So we are rebuilding our server stack and re-looking at our database architecture. We are rebuilding the website from the ground up. We are currently redesigning everything. And I think the one theme that's really going through everything is scalability. How do we build everything in reusable modular parts that can save us from any duplicated effort and allow us to spin up campaigns like that. So that gets us to data. I think one of the interesting things about Do Something, especially in the nonprofit space, is that we are a very data-centric organization. Big data is a really fuzzy term right now, but it's something that I believe that really is a part of us far more than just us preaching. So we have 2 full-time data scientists in-house. One is working on the crisis text line project. One is at Do Something Proper. And they say they like to talk about data from the perspective of a dot organism. So thinking about our organization as a living, breathing organism. And if you, I'm going to jump in.
Good.
So you think about even you guys walking down the street, as you leave the building tonight, you're going to be rated with all different types of input. You're going to hear people talking behind you, the sound of their own footsteps, car traffic going by. And for your survival, it's become incredibly important for you to figure out what signals are important to listen to and what are not. So somebody's phone ringing next to you isn't important, but your phone ringing is. And being able to filter out that noise becomes increasingly important as more and more channels open. So as an organization, that means that we need to figure out what user input is important. So we'll look at some key demographics we've identified. So where our users are based, how old they are, gender, sex, religion, everything across the board is starting to track. And part of that kind of modular approach is building a data store that we can access from anywhere. So our campaigns team can dive into that and start to assess what campaigns make sense based on our users in real time. And that'll allow us to then build some really cool graphing tools. So we can have these cause maps that we can look at and drag metrics around and see, okay, of all the people that report back on more than 3 campaigns, where are they located? And being able to go through that data pulls up some really interesting smaller details and nuanced aspects about our users we wouldn't normally see. A campaign like FedUp that we were talking about earlier is a great example of that. The campaign was fun to do, and it made sense to us, but I honestly don't think we really knew what we were getting into when we put that campaign up. We knew the model worked. We tested that create and share model, and we run a very successful version of it with pets. So we...
Not pets that you eat.
No.
For lunch at school.
There are no pets involved.
Yes.
So we wanted to test it with a new subject, and it was a bit of a risk. It ended up working out quite well. But one of the really interesting things that came back from that, and being able to pay attention to these small metrics allows us to kind of capitalize on the opportunities, is that our users then told us what they cared about. So the images they sent back to us, how they framed their experiences interacting with their cafeteria food on a daily basis, ended up being completely surprising. So we noticed a lot of those school lunches had styrofoam trays, and we then have an environmental aspect. We noticed a lot of the lunches might be meat heavy, so there's nutrition aspects from the meat portion or portion size of the food. And looking through those report backs, we now have dozens of avenues that we can investigate and spin off future campaigns for. And we already know we have tractions across all those avenues because this data came directly from our users. It's not something we got from a consulting group. It's not something we had to purchase or
survey them.
Right, exactly.
Plus, we already have registered users on that campaign, so you can see new campaigns from people who already either voted on or reported back for FedUp. The interesting thing about that is most not-for-profits think of metrics and goals as data. And so they're very, on a campaign like FedUp, they would just look at how many photos, how many votes, and that's it.
Okay.
But, because that's what they had set up originally, but when you start to think of your company like an organism, and you have nerve endings everywhere. And like you said, you just walk outside and you hear there's all kinds of feedback. An organization is the same way. So at Do Something, we're getting millions of pieces of data constantly. And then the question is sort of like, what are we listening to? How do we cut it? Basically, it's collection, storage, and analysis. Those are the three things that you have to be. Collection, storage, analysis. That's the three things you have to really think about. All right, I'm not sure what of any of this stuff is really interesting to you. So what would you like to ask questions or have us talk more about?
Well, let's let them start.
Hi.
I guess I'm a huge fan of Dress for Success as well, and I guess when you're looking at issues that are so huge, like homelessness or like nutrition or underemployment among disadvantaged populations, how do you sort through, it's kind of like with all the noise again, like how do you sort through all that stuff to really find the key smallest thing that you can do that'll have a big impact?
So that there it is. I mean, yeah, exactly. I'm personally, there's lots of people, I'm not drawn to policy. I mean, if I go to Washington DC once a year, it's a failed year for me. Like I'm not drawn to politics and policy. I know it matters. I hope lots of people here I vote mostly. You know, like I hope other people are drawn to it. I know that it really does matter, but it's not my bag. I like to make things, and I like to make culture, and I like to execute. I like to have like a vision and then execute and see it happen and touch it. And it's very tangible stuff, like a Dress for Success or a Fed Up, like things where you can have a beginning, middle, and end. And I just know that about myself. And I think part of this is when you do social change is to figure out like what makes you tick. What do you like to do? What part of the food chain do you like to be in? I also like white space. I'm not a big fan of, competition works in lots of places, but I think one of the reasons Do Something is so successful now is that I did, when I got there, look at a competitive landscape and say, okay, lots of people are covering little kids, lots of people are covering like social entrepreneurs in their 20s and 30s and funding them, but like who's got teenagers? Who's going to turn them on to Cause for Life? And who's going to do this in sort of a more fun, edgy, potty-mouthed way? And that was white space. Where Dress for Success was concerned, there were so many other organizations doing job training, welfare to work, especially in the 90s, because that was President Clinton's big thing, was welfare to work initiatives. And then what happened was, because all of the welfare to work initiatives were government funded, they were all tied to the metric of getting a job. And so once you got a job, you got your check from your government funder, and then you were done. Which meant that all of those organizations had zero incentive to stay in contact with any of these people who they pushed into work. It's like once you got somebody a job at Burger King, you were considered a success as a job training program or a domestic violence program or whatever, and that was it, so your check. And I was like, well, what happens then? Because keeping a job is sometimes harder than getting a job. And so Dress for Success actually comes in at that last point. So it helps you find suits for your job interview. And then the little known fact about Dress for Success is that Dress for Success is the place that helps you keep your job. And they have this whole program called the Professional Women's Group. And it's a monthly meeting where people come and learn about things like, when your boss gives you criticism, how do you handle it? Because like doing this is not the best way to go. Or you know, like if you don't have daycare, all of a sudden your kid is sick. Like what do? You can't always just cancel and not come into work. So those kinds of things. So I am a big fan of like white spaces, like sizing up a space, and then I never made a business plan for Dress for Success. I didn't make a business plan to do something. Bless you. I still don't think we really have one. I'm a big fan of like ship it. Before everybody was talking about throw up an MVP, which everybody does now. Like I always just believed that was the way to do it. Like make something and see if people like it, no matter what it is. Because it always has to be about the target audience. I have to say that when I did Dress for Success, I was like the women's space was kind of my thing. I went to Brown. I was a feminist. I was a pro-choice activist in college. And so like women and welfare to work was like where my head was. And now I really love the youth space. On a Friday night, I watch reruns of iCarly. Like I love this space. I'm a big believer in the youth space. Sam, I'm a big fan of Sam on iCarly. No. Sam's funny. She's the best hair on TV.
So in order to like tackle these big issues that have to do with policy, like I don't know, there's a lot of like environmental stuff that can't really be done without involving policy. What is, I mean, I guess how do you convince people that like they should invest in this? Is it a matter of getting someone on board that will get a different type of value, like a sponsor that will get
In policy?
So like say I'm gonna just in one of my group projects we're doing something around air pollution, and we're really about like empowering kids to take control of this issue, and we are trying to convince I don't know, we're trying to use this as a solution to it, but it's not obvious that this is the solution. So like, and so it's like, okay, if it's not obvious and it's not in the theory of change, it doesn't like stem to that, like what are we supposed to do? Like we can't do that, or maybe we just
So, like I said, I'm a big, policy changes need to happen, and somebody else should do them, not me, and not do something. And,
so like
so again, largely because of young people, and one of the rules that we have for ourselves is instead of convincing kids that they should care about XYZ issue, is we really just, we're the organization that does the issues they already care about. So you care about something and we'll reflect it back to you. In fact, we've made that a rule, and this will be interesting after telling you about Fed Up, but we call it the no tater tot policy. So do you remember tater tots? It was the best lunch day, right? Like that was the one lunch day you didn't want to sneak off campus. Right, so like that was, they're basically short stubby French fries. They're not good for you. But it was the best lunch day. We are not going to be the organization to take away your tater tots. No way. You love tater tots? That's all good. Instead, what we are is the organization that does Fed Up. You photo your own lunch, and you say eat it or toss it, and you caption it and speak for yourself. We're not the organization that's going to run like a huge petition nationally to abolish the tater tot. Oh my gosh, that's like organizational suicide. And organizations do it all the time. So we do financial literacy. I mean, that's just so effing boring, right? Financial literacy, and you would think that'd be a tater tot issue, teaching young people about being responsible with money. Except that's not really what it is. For us, it's would you rather. It's would you rather eat ramen for a month or tuna for a month to save for your college tuition. So it's stuff that's like real life. It is would you rather work as a janitor in your school, or would you rather walk dogs in the neighborhood in order to pay for college tuition? Like several people in this room have done this. So the way that we do these issues and reflect these things back are all things. We have a whole wall in the office that's painted black with white letters, "Fight for the User," which is from the original Tron. And that's the idea. That is really what we're there to do.
Did not know that.
Yeah, that's why it's there, because I'm really nerdy. And it's really about fighting for the user, and that everything is supposed to be like, love this target market. What do they want to do? What do they care about? And we're supposed to reflect it back to them.
Well, can I ask you actually to talk about the vetting process a little bit? Like,
For
and I think it
campaigns?
could be in flux because you're going from 25 to 250.
Yeah.
But like, how do you get an idea, and how do you decide what to actually execute? How does
So
it-
a third of ideas are coming from sponsors, and they're
Yeah,
bringing them
that's
to us, and
the
then
asset. They
we
bring
say
the
no.
idea to you.
Sometimes, so like we actually, I wish I could tell you because you'd love to hear this one. There was a sponsor in the office today who most of you hate this company. I mean, I hate this company and their ads and their whole brand position, but they're changing it, and around the Super Bowl they're going to do something just 180 degrees, and they brought us an idea, and we're digging the idea.
All right.
So that's like that happens.
Mhm.
Then a third of the ideas come from like users, from members, from kids. We see them doing something and we grab it and say, oh, we can make that a national thing. And then a third of the ideas just come from our staff, who look like you and him, a little bit less me. And I'm the oldest one in the office. I think I'm the oldest. And so a third. And then the way that we go through these ideas is there are basic categories we need to cover. So like we've broken out into 11 causes. So we need to make sure that we have campaigns in all of those cause areas. We want to make sure we have campaigns you can do alone, campaigns you can do with friends. Then we want to have campaigns along the 6 campaign type. So once you have that whole matrix laid out, it's a lot
Is it
less
actually a
fun.
physical matrix in the office, or is it?
It's I love that you would go like this. It's like in things like Trello and Google Doc.
Oh yeah.
It's on a whiteboard too.
Is it? I don't. Where's it? Where? I haven't seen it.
It's on the whiteboard in the back.
Oh, maybe.
Can you just tell us what the 6 campaign types are?
Collections, share for good, SMS gaming, which we haven't even talked about, which I'm happy to talk about, or you can talk about.
Did it put the place to
Improve a place. So that's like paint something, clean something. Blah, 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 blah. Can't even remember them off the top of my head. If I really sat and thought about it, it was less sweaty. It's very hot in here.
No.
If I was less sweaty, I hope,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. No,
Yeah.
we apologize.
It's making me sound
There's a
dumber.
water, there's a water on
We
We
did
finished
that.
our
Yeah, we did that.
it? Is that
Yeah.
good?
Can I ask also, like, if you could talk about a big success or something that just sort of like a
Something that
runaway
you're-
hit?
This is good. Can I throw this back at him
Yeah, yeah,
since he's
yeah.
not entirely happy with me
Yeah.
right now? What do you think you're most proud of? Oh, really?
It's not that bad, but I don't think
Okay.
Something that made you cry, Nancy.
Oh. I mean,
With joy.
Crisis text line. I mean, no, that's not
Oh,
joy.
that's not
I mean,
joy.
crisis text line, I'm pretty psyched about. So crisis,
Yeah.
did you any of you watch the TED Talk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty awesome. So if you watch the
Yeah.
TED Talk, you know the origin of this was one of the team coming into my office and saying, we just got this text message and I don't know what the fuck to do. And it was literally what I said in the TED Talk. The text exactly said, he won't stop raping me, it's my dad, he told me not to tell anyone, are you there? And we were like, oh my god, this is awful. I can't believe this is happening to someone. I can't believe this is happening to someone and she doesn't know where to turn, so she's texting a stranger. Like, that's, it was devastating. And, I mean, definitely like the worst day of my career life.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? It was also so humbling that she would trust us.
Yeah.
That's like major trust to put in anybody.
Yeah.
So we knew we decided to build this thing,
Mhm.
and it took much longer than it should have taken to get it going.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years to raise the money. And like in all fairness, I'm kind of a safe bet. Like
Yeah.
humility aside, I'm a safe bet, right? Dress for success, turn around, do something. Like give me your money, right? I'm gonna go do something good with it. And I couldn't freaking get anybody to fund this. It was like painful. I was like, is it me? Do I suck at this? Like, I'm older now and I have like an assistant. Maybe I've gone soft, you know? Maybe I'm not like good in the trenches with the startup anymore. Or then I was like, no, maybe it's the sector. The sector sucks. Like all these other organizations, like people saw my TED Talk and started copying it and creating their own text lines, like bullying text lines and sex trafficking text lines. And I'm like, this is really fucking stupid. The whole point is the data, and the data depends on volume, velocity, variety. Like we all need to be part of the same thing. Stop just building your own shitty little things. Also, you don't know anything about technology, so why are you building something in tech? Like you're just gonna F it up.
Yeah.
So I was really frustrated with that, as you can see. And then I was like really mad at the money, the foundations, who would be like, oh, this is really exciting, but you don't fit any of our buckets. And I'm like, no shit, it's new. New doesn't fit a bucket. You know, like it's new. That's the whole point, to new. It doesn't fit buckets. And it was a maddening. And so for 2 years, I was running Do Something and Crisis Text Line at the same time. And I wasn't an entirely happy person, I'm not sure. And it was really frustrating. And I loved it. And wasn't going to give up on it because like that honestly, it sounds cheesy, but like that actual text, I was at war. It's wartime.
Yeah.
And that's what I love most. And so finally got the money, amazingly convinced JCPenney to give us the month of March last year, and customers could round up at the register, and we raised $1.4 million that way. Which was awesome. Yes, there are still people going to JCPenney and they're very kind. And then got
They
two
don't need
other...
Wi-Fi, but they're good people.
Exactly. And then got two individuals, well-known individuals, to each give $1 million. And then I got a couple of foundations to like throw in a little bit. So in total I raised about $4 million. Hired a couple people off of Do Something onto Crisis Text Line in February, and we launched in August. And so the update to the TED Talk is it's live, and the update to this is we've already had over 300,000 text exchanges, like since August 1st. It's on fire.
Wow.
We launched it, we flipped the switch, it is available 24/7. If you know anybody who needs help, it's available for free 24/7 anywhere in the United States. The number is 741-741. You can text it anytime, and please do share. We only promoted it a little bit in El Paso and Chicago, and yet it's spreading nationally. And then we did a little bit of SEO on Google, because frankly, if you're really serious about committing suicide, you Google it, because you want to know exactly how to get it done. And so what's good is now when people Google it, we're one of the first things that come up and we're intervening. And so our rate of active rescue is higher than most other places because we're getting real things, and so we're sending police and EMTs to people's homes. And the data is already really interesting and like juicy. So eating disorders, right? So like when would you think for young people there would be a spike in eating disorders texts? Like take a guess. What time of day or days of the week, like when would you think eating disorder stuff would happen?
In the morning.
The morning, right when you go to school, like breakfast time, you're starting your day, or lunch at school, right after school, something like that. It's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It is a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday thing, which was kind of surprised to me. That information alone, if you think about what happens if that data is then public and publicized, should change how schools and school vendors think about what they feed, what they put in the cafeteria on Mondays and Tuesdays. It should change how school guidance counselors think about stuff and look for stuff. It should change how families think about their own family members and the way they communicate with each other and what they're watching. It should change programs, eating disorders programs. I mean, it should change how eating disorder organizations think, all that, and that's just that one thing.
It changes the effectiveness of our communication. So
Right.
we then know that those are the days of the week we need to focus on this issue rather than another issue.
Right, which is why crisis text line and do something are still part of the same office, because when we shift to 250 campaigns and we have like staff picks, you know, like an Etsy or a Kickstarter, of that 250, some of them will be staff picks. You can bet your booty that Monday and Tuesday will be the days that we have staff picks around healthy eating, eating disorders, things like that. It's great data. So crisis text line for me is my proudest thing. You have to answer.
I was
Okay, good.
So I wanted to say the direction we're going in now, but I realized that was a non-answer, and then.
No, that makes me happy because then you're not going to put on the.
But I think far more than just the direction we're moving in now, the fact that we're moving in a new direction. Do something is really interesting to me in that it's a nonprofit company, it's an organization that is able to move quickly, break things, and change course. And the fact that we're scaling from 25 to 250 campaigns and we're turning that around inside of 3 months is kind of insane. And even more insane that it's happening in an in-house team at a charity. So that's really interesting. I think a lot of the data stuff is great to see, and the fact that we can actually move on a lot of that. Before coming here, I was kind of lurking around the ad world, and it took really well-known, amazing ad agency over 6 months to put together a new job description and that was coming down from a global director at the company. It took them 6 months to put together a job description. I've had my job descriptions changed twice in a day. So while there is certainly there's an element of anxiety that comes with that, I do think I'd much rather being on this side of the table, and it's been kind of a fascinating ride.
Can I ask a question? Now that you know the crisis texting and the eating disorders and things like that, are you going to look out and look for and seek other organizations that are working in that space?
We're launching a white label in Q1.
Okay.
So instead of building your own, imagine crisis text line like Gmail. So it could either just be Gmail, like, oh, crisis text line, crisis text line, or, well, do something's email runs on Gmail.
Right.
We're actually talking to the National Runaways and giving them their own keyword. And also, it helps us because with their expertise. So if we get somebody texting in, and the way that it's been built is so freaking smart, and I can't take any credit for it, but the guy who's the CTO of Crisis Text Line, who we pulled from Do Something over to Crisis Text Line, built it so brilliantly. They spent a lot of time all summer on the road looking at how counselors. Have any of you ever volunteered on like a hotline before? Okay, so anyway, it's archaic the way the system works, and what they built was there's a pop-up, and a counselor can have the pop-up, and if you're looking, there's two things that are really smart. One is the pop-up, you can talk to another counselor. If you discover that this kid is actually a runaway or there's incest, you don't know anything about incest, the pop-up, you can talk to another counselor in the system. That counselor can pull up this conversation and look at the same thread. You two can talk to each other in the pop-up and decide what's the best thing to say back to this kid. And the kid thinks the kid is still just talking to crisis text line, but now there's like a team of experts that's helping think of like, how do we help this kid? So that's really smart. Here's the other really smart thing about it. We're using natural language processes, so auto-tagging and keywords. So here's the thing that just like really gets me even hotter and sweatier, is, which is hard to do right now. Sorry. I am, and they're sticking to me. This is so unattractive. And it is, so right now counseling, I won't ask you to raise your hands on this one, but like we're all New Yorkers in social change. Half of you have seen shrinks. So you see a shrink or a psychologist or a counselor, and let's say go back to eating disorder. It's for an eating disorder. You don't know if your shrink or counselor or coach is any good. You just know that you have like great chemistry with her or him. And so you don't know, should it take like 5 sessions to cure you, or are you still going to that person 5 years later, right? Like you have no idea. It's just based on chemistry. Now, add natural language processes, and 2 things happen. So one is the natural language processes auto-tagging all of these keywords. Now there's going to be a pop-up that says, based on these keywords, there's a 90% chance that there's an alcohol issue here. The kid has never said alcohol, but because of the algorithm and the auto-tagging of the keywords, the system is like, ask about alcohol, or something like that. So bringing science to counseling. So that's one. Secondly, so that's one is like actually prompting the counselors, you might want to say this, you might want to try this word, you might want to ask about XYZ, so the counselors are going to become better. The second thing is the supervisors of the counselors. How have counselors been evaluated? Do they show up to work on time? And just like the surveys at the end of the year report that this counselor has done a good job. But again, the people filling out the surveys, like you and me who go see shrinks, we don't know if our shrink is any good. So we just fill out a nice survey because like, Rory is a nice person. I don't know. So this way the supervisor is going to be able to evaluate and run like simple programs over what the counselor said, and the supervisor can go back to the counselor and say, you know what, you leapt into something too quickly, or you're waiting too long before getting to XYZ issue, or your texts are too many words, or do you know that you use the word, problematic 20 times a day? No, I had no idea, something like that. So there's going to be science to counseling, which is freaking the shit out of psychiatrists and psychologists who hear about this, and you know what I say? Too effing bad, because this is going to improve counseling, and we're going to help a lot of kids this way. So again, can't claim credit for this one, but it's really smart. It's really smart. It's really exciting. Crisis text line. Watch this space. It's a really smart thing, and it's going to do a lot of good. Someone over here had a question. Lie. Okay, nope. Yes?
I have a question.
Okay.
I think you guys are awesome. I'm doing my thesis project similar to that, but I'm trying to use street art and break into social innovation with that.
Are you so upset about 5 points?
Actually, I know Mira is.
So do I.
I know.
I'm so sad, and she handled it so badly. They were
terrible.
like thinking that a bunch of petition signatures, the wall cuffs. We'll talk about it.
I mean, we could totally have like a whole discussion about that too.
So sad.
But
whitewashing the buildings was mean.
Ugh. I know, and at least they have like the art murder up there now, which is, trying to do something about it. But I'm totally like a self-starter. Went out there, like, came up with my own project, started painting murals with kids, doing team building and confidence stuff.
Great.
And being here, it's kind of different for me because I'm in like an academic world. So I kind of wanted you to have like, if you could specifically talk about your first comment about the theory of change is bullshit.
So let me ask you
If
this.
you could elaborate a little bit on
throw this one
that.
out there. Why are you all here? Why are you getting
I'm here for the youth.
Why are you getting a graduate degree in this?
Sorry. Why? Why are you here?
Why school?
Awesome.
I actually.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's fun and you're learning a lot.
An incubator for like, it's like constant stimulation on all these ideas, and it's like turning us into. I feel like we all could like do anything right now. I don't
Great.
know.
So my response would be do it.
And I couldn't
Totally.
maybe like 4 months ago.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We
And
should
this is
start doing
a different place. And that's terrific. And it sounds like you're making, that your thesis is making, not just thinking and writing. That would be and this place allows you to do that and encourages it. So that would be my response to you. I mean,
Don't lose sight of that empowerment and
Yeah.
do something with it.
yeah. I have a
question. It sounds like you move really fast and make decisions really fast, and I tend to have sort of a similar outlook. And I'm curious, is when you're working with an organization and managing people who maybe need more time to analyze, or they have different ways that they process information and make decisions, how have you managed that, or like brought people on board with a fast pace and with that kind of thinking?
So, I don't think that every organization or every school is doing this for everybody. And we're a fast place. And I would argue that if you're not fast or don't like that, it's not the right place for you. And we love you long time, but I will happily help you find somewhere else to be. We are definitely a place that breaks things and likes to move and likes to shift quickly. So we have 3 rules for hiring. And there's a pamphlet on this. These rules are created by DJ Patil, who created the data science team at LinkedIn. The algorithm, people you may know, he is the one who created that. It was his team that built that now every social media platform has. And so his 3 rules for hiring that we have adopted and adapted are the following. One is, would I want to be in a bunker with you? I'm going to spend more time with you than I spend with my friends and family. So are you a douchebag, or do I want to hang out with you? 2 is, can you hit a home run in 90 days? Are you going to hit the ground running? And that doesn't mean, I don't care what your background is, you don't need to have a BA to work for us. I don't really care where you went to school. I've found that the kids from the best schools are not necessarily the smartest kids anyway. So I don't really care what your background experience is. Are you whip smart? Are you creative? Can you problem solve? Because we want people who can hit a home run in their first 90 days. We don't have time to constantly hold your hand. And if you're somebody who wants your hand held, that's great. Go to a big company or an ad agency. And the third one is, are you someone who's capable of doing something amazing in 4 to 6 years? And that doesn't necessarily mean do something. So I like to think of do something the way that like the finance asses think of Goldman Sachs. It's like, oh, I'll go to Goldman Sachs for 2 years and then I'll jump to somewhere else. Or maybe I'll be a partner at Goldman Sachs. That's how we think of do something. Like, come to us, give me 2 years, and then decide, like, you know what, I love this. And I want to be here and I want to be part of it, and there will be a path for you to grow and learn and lead. Or decide, like, this was amazing, I love this, and now I want to go to somewhere else, and I'll help you do that. And we'll stay friends, and maybe you'll come back someday, or we'll work together, or we'll just be friends. But think of it like a teaching hospital that way. And those are our 3 rules, and that's really it. And so those are the kinds of things that when we interview, we're looking for, and those are the 3 rules on the checklist. It's not like experience or any of that other stuff. It's, do you have our kind of DNA? And the only decision making that I'm sometimes not good at is firing people. And I wish I could do it more quickly. I'm good in like the first 3-month period of being like, this person does not have our DNA, just lose them. And we'll do that a couple times a year. Actually, with new hires, we'll kind of, which is, you probably should lose somewhere like 15 to 20% of the people that you hire in that first period. But then I'm not great about firing. After they've been there like 6 months, I feel like they're family. And so I'm really bad about firing them, and I wish I was better at it. Because you never actually end up firing somebody and regret it. And be like, I wish I'd held on longer. You always think like, God, that felt good. Why didn't I do that 6 months ago? What ends up happening is people who've been there for a while, I'm like, no, we can get there. Like, I believe this person has a DNA. And it's like, no, they really don't. And just don't wait for somebody to leave. Actually have the balls to make a change.
Kick them out to do it.
No, make a change. Like, make a change, because otherwise it can become toxic and that's not good. And I'm not awesome about that. So that's where I'm not a fast decider. But you're right in noticing that, like, I'm a little quirky, and we are not a place for everybody. If you do have that DNA, if you want to join our island of misfits, it's awesome. And it is. I mean, we are all, people are friends, and they are. They're all like weird people who have found each other. But it's not a place for everybody, and I'm okay with that.
And that addresses, I think, people we bring on, but there's an interesting side to that also of how we speak out from the organization. We do a lot of work with corporate sponsors, and it's really difficult when you're in this environment every day, and this is how we think, and if you don't think like this, you will try to think like this quickly. And then we'll send something out for approval to a corporate sponsor, and they're like, great, it's 2 o'clock, we're we're done today and we'll get this back to you in 3 weeks. Like, no, this thing's gonna be done in 3 weeks. It's gonna be off the website in 3 weeks. We need this back tomorrow. And
So we have to pick our partners carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 points there. So pick them carefully, and we also need to train them on how they deal with us.
Yeah.
And that often means just setting really strict deadlines. We'll send things over and say, we absolutely want your feedback. Your feedback's important to this process. You have until tomorrow afternoon to get to us. And if they miss that, we move forward.
That's awesome.
This goes back to the not-for-profit worth thing that I was talking about before. We're not a charity, and I wish this for the whole sector. Stop begging for shit. And like, we provide real value. 10% of jobs in New York City are in the not-for-profit space. I don't run a nonprofit, right? Nonprofit is like Foursquare, and nonprofit is a lot of Detroit. Like, there are lots of nonprofits out there, but we work at a not-for-profit, and that just means we have a different purpose and a different sort of bottom line, but we have value, and so, you know, we don't beg.
That's,
I guess, you guys seem a little radical and edgy. So, I guess, like, you know, we're talking about like being mad about stuff, and a lot of times when we're mad about things in this country, it's at the hands of corporations. Like, it's because we're getting stepped on by corporations. And so I'm wondering, like, dealing with corporate sponsors, how do you guys sort of either reconcile that or play that, or like how do you just deal with corporate sponsors when you're trying to make social change?
You reconcile it by taking their money and doing whatever you want with it. At this point, this was one of the more.
Sounds great.
This point was difficult for me, honestly, when I first signed on, because
In the hypothetical, it's harder than in the reality.
the reality is hard too. And if you look at any organization, there's some anonymous nonprofits doing very well, they're a leader in their space, they're well respected, and big scary corporation comes. Like Goldman Sachs comes and they want you to do something with them. And you can do two things. You can go, oh god, the vampire squid, and run. Or you can take their money because you can do something good with that money. And it might be blood money, but you can do good with that
Do
money.
you feel like
and-
we've taken any blood money? Is that way better than me?
No, we worked with Walmart, and I was initially uneasy about that. But we did some great things with the Walmart campaign, so
What did you do with the Walmart?
Yeah.
That was the PB and Jam Slam. So we fed a lot of people.
and there's always a trade-off. I'm not saying whitelist every corporation.
Right.
There are some you draw the line at. Somebody mentioned Monsanto earlier. That might just be on the blacklist, and that's fine.
And we wouldn't take tobacco money,
No,
we wouldn't take alcohol money. We did a lot of work with Pepsi for a long time, and actually we did
the
good
Pepsi
work.
machine in the office, which
We-
has been hugely controversial for us. There are a lot of people that try to abolish it, but at the end of the day, so we
It keeps
have.
the soda cold. I haven't even known.
That's soda. I mean, that's our. Those are our tater tots.
But we don't say like eat them,
Those
drink
are
it every day.
just-
Those are potatoes. We don't say drink it every day. And actually we did some really good work with Pepsi. In fact, Pepsi was who behind the scenes helped us think about presidents, vice presidents, followers, and slackers. It was the people on Mountain Dew who we were like, can you talk us through this? Because you really know the youth and youth boys. And it was really helpful. And they were sort of fun people to work with. In fact, the CMO was on our board for a while, and he was pretty great. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that in the hypothetical, the idea of like taking money, it would sound like we're cause washing, right? That we're taking their money and sort of cleaning it for them. But we're not, they're not buying us. You know, if Walmart, we have said all kinds of things about Walmart that we don't like about them. And we've tweeted it and Facebooked it and all kinds of stuff. They're not buying our silence or our allegiance. They're buying that campaign. That's it.
Have you ever worked with a company and like just decided that something they've done is so despicable you can't work with them anymore?
Yes, and it's just the asshole factor. If you make someone on my team cry, we will not work with you again. And so we've had that happen twice. And had to say once to a very big bank in town, that, okay, great, 95% of the kids who did this loved it and want to do it again, and they said, great, let's talk about doing it for a third year, and I said, we're not going to work with you. And they're like, what? And I was like, you made one of my team cry. and it's not worth it. Life's too short, and we only work with people who we like to work with, and this was painful. And she literally looked at me, actually, it was like out of an old time movie. She literally said the words, "I'm gonna make your name mud in this town." And I looked at her and I was like, "Are we just going black and white here?" I was like crazy, and also like I knew her boss's boss, so I like made one phone call and was like, "You look crazy person over there at the foundation." She was like, "I'm on it." And yeah, that was like a crazy ass thing to say to me. And also, was that gonna convince me that you were now a nice person and I wanted to work with you? Like, you kind of proved the point in the meeting by saying that. So we said no to that bang. Yeah, so we've done that a couple of times. Like, if you're really a jerk, we'll walk.
Can I ask you a question in regards to that? When you first started out, like a while back, did you have the same sense of confidence to turn people away like that, or what? How did you sort of power through that?
So the first time that I learned the value of saying no was at Dress for Success. I had $5,000 that I inherited from my great grandfather that inspired me. I thought I was rich. To start Dress for Success, and I started with 3 nuns in Spanish Harlem. It's a whole long story. Anyway, as any Jewish kid from Hartford does, so we had like the $5,000, and then it was one of the nuns told me to put it in a CD at the bank because it would collect interest. So I took financial advice from someone who took an oath of poverty. That was fun. So we started with no money, and so Sears came along, and Sears said, "We want to do this thing with you. We'll give you $25,000, and we're going to match your clients with editors from 12 magazines." They had Andre Leontali from Vogue. They had Cindy Levy, who at the time was the editor-in-chief of Self. They had all these unbelievable, and they were going to pair them with a client. And they were going to go in to see the softer side of Sears and pick out an outfit at Sears. And I was like, for $25K? And I was like, and this is our first year, basically it was 18 months in. And once you worked with Sears, I knew enough to think, well, once we worked with Sears, we were never going to get anybody else in their category. We're going to work with JCPenney, Target, anybody else. It was a category killer. And it was going to establish our brand at a certain point. And like, this was New York. I needed those ladies on the Upper East Side to give me suits, right? And so like, once we established it with Sears, I didn't kiss all them goodbye. So I said no. And the nuns on the board were like, "Are you crazy? It's $25,000. And I was like, "You know what, you're going to trust me on this one." And so then I went out and I partnered very publicly in that first year with Coach and Ferragamo. And those were like our first 2 big sponsors, along with Eileen Fisher. And then Avon. Avon gave us pearls for every client. Every Dress for Success client comes in wanting a pair of pearls. In her mind, that is the image of a working woman is wearing pearls. So it was like, oh, pearls, yeah. Okay. And so and Sears went out and found some other charity to partner with, and it went really, really badly. And the next year they came back and they said, "Okay, we're going to give you $150,000 unrestricted, and $50,000 worth of large size suits." Now, the average American woman is a size 12. The average woman who works at like Goldman Sachs or the big finance in New York is like a size 8. And our average size client was an 18. We really needed large size suits. And so they found my pain point and they stuck a finger in it. And I was like, yes. So in that 3rd year, we said yes to Sears. We got the $150K unrestricted. It's what helped us start the Dress for Success worldwide office and do expansion all over the US. And those 50,000 large size suits helped clothe a lot of large size women and made them feel awesome and go to job interviews. I went with Andre Leontali to the Sears store in Brooklyn with a client who was a domestic violence survivor. He insisted on starting in the handbag department. And he said, "Honey, we're going to start with a handbag and do the suit around it." It was hilarious.
Video of that?
There's no video. Back then there was no phones, no video. I wish, because he was so over the top and outrageous, and it was the most fun. This woman felt like $1 million. I don't even think she really knew who he was, except that he was an oversized gay man with a southern accent. She was like, "He's amazing," and I was like, "I have no idea who you're with right now." And it was unbelievable. And there was an article in the New York Times, and every one of the editors wrote about it in their books, and it was huge, and it really helped launch Dress for Success into the stratosphere. And so saying no sometimes, but it's like about knowing your own worth. It's kind of like, don't say yes to the football captain until he takes you to dinner first. It's the same thing. Virginity jokes aren't worth either. My drug jokes, my virginity jokes, nothing is worth it. Anyway, know your worth. Play poker. I used to play a lot of poker in underground clubs in New York. Yes. And the way that because I went Poltergeist. I used to play be Rounders?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can give you the real story behind Rounders. I used to play, it was a club called the Mayfair, right by Madison Square Park. It's a longer story than this, which apparently we'll tell you some other time. And I used to play a lot of cards, and that's how I honed some of these skills also, which is like, know your position at the table and know your worth. And ask for it with a straight face and you might get it.
Another good word there quickly, unrestricted.
Yes.
If you're going to take money, look at what strings are tying that money back.
I was just on the topic of saying no, at least from what we're seeing here, you seem to be like fairly casual in the way that you, like, in that conversation when somebody comes to you offering you money, are you kind of PC about like what that conversation is? Like, do you actually tell them, I don't want to take your money because it's bad for my career?
I think, can I answer that actually? 'Cause
Sure,
you
Maxwell can
said,
too.
you said no to me once.
PC would be, did I really?
Yeah.
Oh, what did I do?
Yeah, it was really, it was one of the, so it was at so there was a big event at your offices for the texting hotline. Josh invited me.
Yeah.
We have friends in common, and it was a who's who. I mean, the crowd there was incredible, very connected, money people. And you gave a rousing speech, and we were all ready to help. Like, everybody wanted to help. I didn't have money to give, but I offered like branding services or strategic like communications or research or anything. Like, I was like offering my skills, and you were basically like, no, we don't need that at all. Thank you very much, but you know, if you have any money or have any connections to people with money,
That's what we need
and
right
it was really great because all the time people say, oh, thanks, that'd be great. Why don't you come by the office next week? And it's just a waste of time. And I knew immediately you would never waste my time.
No, I don't waste
If
time.
you needed me, you would ask. And you asked very specifically for what you needed, and it was like, I was really grateful for the straight talk. Though I was kind of like, I did kind of feel stunned for a minute, but that was me.
I mean,
you know,
I don't think PC is something anybody would ever use to describe
No.
it.
It's not a PC bone in her body.
I
But
don't.
it's like, when they came back to you a few years later, I gave you $150,000. I was just trying to imagine, like,
That
what was
clearly
that
my no
conversation
wasn't
like when they were
a,
like,
you know,
let's
I
do
mean, it wasn't
this?
like that.
Like, no,
Yeah,
thank you.
no, I mean, it was like, no, and here's why, because
Yeah.
you're gonna kill us. So I am always, there's a, you can't see it, there's a little tiny little baby tattoo here of a heart. It's a heart on my sleeve. Everything I am thinking, my husband likes to joke that I'm missing the lint filter. Right? Like, I don't have a lint tray. Right, exactly. Everything I'm thinking and feeling, I say. And I you know, it's just, I was born this way.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Your heart,
I just-
My mom's from
He said
there.
it's a Hartford thing.
She's like,
Is it also West Hartford? Oh, yeah. So yeah, I'm very, it's out there, and I think it's something that like the people I work with, or am friends with, or live with, know, like I'm not being direct to be hurtful in any way. I actually really love people, I love the people I work with because I picked them, my family I didn't pick. And I will explain everything. So I'm also, I have another rule, I never say I like, I love, I hate, because those are not useful. So so while I'll be very direct and I will make decisions quickly, it's not gonna be, I love it, make this happen. That's not something anybody can ever replicate again. And that's a totally subjective feeling. It will be, here's why this works. This makes a lot of sense for the user because you place this here or blah, blah, blah. Everything is always a teaching and an exchange, and that I could grow from too. So if I say, here's why I think this makes a lot of sense, the person responding to me can say, oh no, Nancy, like here's actually why this makes sense. So that people learn to talk to each other and persuade. I grew up in a house of a mother who was a lefty who recycled before it was like easy to do. We had to drive to the recycling plant and literally separate the white and the green and the brown bottles, like crunchy lefty, and a father who campaigned door to door for Goldwater. Right, so like what would be called a mixed marriage, even though they were both Jews, right? So and the idea was you came to the dinner table every night prepared to defend your position and talk. They talked about politics and current events, and it was very gregarious, but it was like lefty and righty, and so like you were supposed to, and so the idea of like defending a position and explaining and why you think about something, it is ingrained in me. And so at the office we are always saying like, here's why this, there's a lot of talking about why some things make sense and explaining it, and we talk about design with purpose. So like, why is what is this line, what's the purpose of this line, why did you pick the color yellow. Instead of like, oh, I really like the yellow. It's like, why? What does the yellow mean for the user? What is it saying? Where does that come from? So it's constant.
Yeah, I think speaking from the perspective of somebody who's heard you say no a lot, there's a really fine line between being direct and being unpleasant, and there's a lot of value you can get out of being direct, and you can sink your ship really quickly by being unpleasant.
Yeah.
And that line is not always clear, but it's important to always stay on the direct side of that line, because people will value it, and it's important to communicate quickly, it's important to communicate succinctly, and when people open every sentence with "I like" or a long pause, you sort of lose faith in what they're saying.
Thank you so much for sweating with us tonight.